Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about toxicity in Dead by Daylight and I guess video games in general. The reason I want to do this is because the last stream I had, just for like an hour straight, I had just a really cool conversation with my chat about what it is, how we can solve it, what people actually think the definition is. And I thought it yielded some pretty interesting responses and stuff like that. So I just kind of wanted to have an open discussion with the YouTube side of things now because I think, talking about this stuff is important because it is perceived to be in a lot of games. And although my definition of toxic might differ from yours, it is generally agreed to be a problem. So I just wanted to talk about that. So I guess the first thing we should go over first is what actually is toxicity. To me, in terms of like online games, that word has sort of lost all meaning. The reason is, I think the definition of a word should never be a subjective thing. And yet the definition of toxicity is subjective. When you ask somebody, you'll get a different response almost every single time. So I think that sort of means that the meaning of the word has sort of lost itself. The definitions of words should not be subjective. They should just be, this is what this word means, and that's it. That being said, I tried to get a unanimous answer from my chat. And it seemed like the rough sort of response was, generally toxicity, at least in video games, is just sort of going out of your way to make someone feel bad. Really at no benefit to yourself, right? And that's sort of the most agreed upon definition. But I want to dissect that a bit. So it's going out of your way to make someone feel bad. So what if you tunnel somebody? You don't really have to do that. You don't have to tunnel somebody, and you are going out of your way, and it's making someone feel bad. But you're not going out of your way just to make someone feel bad. You're just trying to, win the game with the side effect that it's making someone feel bad. So is it the actual action that you're taking, or is it the intent behind what you're doing that actually annoys people? And that's also an interesting way to look at it, because if you are intending to make someone upset, let's boil it down to its base form. If you're just trying to make someone upset, and let's say in the post-game chat, you just say, I hope you're upset. No one cares. No one gives a shit. If you just say, I hope you're mad, I hope you're upset, I hope you're having a bad day or something like that, because that's what the end result of what the toxicity is. You're hoping to make their day worse, pretty much, right? You're hoping to make their lives, just for a second, not quite as good. So let's say you just boil it down to just the intent, and after the game you just say, I hope you're having a bad day, I hope you're doing bad. No one cares, right? So it's not just the intent that matters. But now what about the action itself? Let's say someone is teabagging, but it's not just the action of teabagging itself that makes people consider it toxicity. Because if you're about to down someone with Leatherface in a corner and they start teabagging, no one thinks that's toxic. We all think it's funny, right? It's when someone is at the exit gates doing it to you, then it becomes toxic. So it's not the action that you're taking, but it's also not just the intent behind the action that you're taking. It's not even both of those combined. Let's say that you want someone to be upset. Let's say you are that David in a corner with a Leatherface and you want the killer to be upset. With all fibers of your being, you want the Leatherface to be mad, and you're just furiously teabagging him as he's about to chainsaw you. So even though your intent is there, you want him to feel bad, and the action is there, you're teabagging him, the Leatherface is still not going to be upset. Because, why would he be? He's still killing you. It doesn't matter. So the third variable there is what it actually needs is you need to have the intent to make someone feel bad. You need to take an action that aids in them feeling bad. And then you also need to be, and this is probably the most important part, you need to be in a position of advantage or power. When you combine all three of these things, you become the Toxic Rangers. And that is when people, I think, consider it to be toxicity. So when you look at examples like that, it's okay, well, now you're the survivor at the end of the game. You're in a position of power and advantage because now you've won the match, and now you're doing it to rub it in. Let's say you're a killer camping the last guy on the hook. You're in a position of power. You're winning the game. You hit him on the hook. Unnecessary position of power. You have the intent to make him upset, and you're taking the action to do so. That's, I think, more closely what the general community feels is toxicity. So according to all of that, what it really boils down to is people not liking sore winners. That's really kind of what people are saying. And to me, that just seems such a lax definition of toxicity. I would just call them little shits. A sore winner is just like, oh, what a fucking ass. That's whatever. Like, it doesn't go past that. When I think toxicity, I think really like nasty shit that can really only happen outside of the game. I don't think anything you can do in the game would constitute that. I think once you get in a post-game chat or you send messages on console or Steam profiles or whatever, and you say, hey, I hope your entire family gets cancer and you get raped, that becomes actual toxic to me. That's my definition of toxicity. When you take it outside of the game and make it like a personal attack on somebody, I think that is actually toxic. And obviously everyone agrees with that because you get banned for doing that hopefully very quickly. But the fact that toxicity has such a subjective definition makes me think it's really lost a lot of its meaning, because my definition is probably not your definition. So when everyone just calls everything toxic, we could be meaning completely different things. If you said, man, this player was toxic, it could be something as simple as he was just tunneling somebody, even just to win the game. And then when I say someone's toxic, they could have wished death upon my entire family. The fact that both of those are accurate definitions of toxicity according to the community, I believe is a problem. And we need to really hone in an actual definition of toxicity, because those two things are not alike. They are very, very different from each other. And I think it's important that we address that they're very different from each other. But, I guess we're going into semantics of the definition at that point. So according to what I think the general community consensus is, toxicity is basically going out of your way to make someone feel bad while being in a position of power or advantage. I think that's what generally people will say it is. Again, that's not what I think, because I don't think that's toxic. I think it has to be personal outside of the game, gunning after the person specifically. If it's interchangeable with any other person, I don't think it's really toxic. But once you're going after someone specifically, then yeah, I think it becomes a very bad problem. But all that being said, the definition of it, whatever, not really relevant. The reason this conversation even started is because I think in one of these games, I was losing and someone was like teabagging me, and I was just ignoring it because I just don't give a shit. And somebody in chat was like, saying, how do you deal with that? How do you do that? And the problem is, for me to truthfully and honestly answer that question, I can't not sound like mean about it, because my truthful answer to that question is, how do you deal with it? It's grow the fuck up. It's a video game. That's my answer. And people don't necessarily like hearing that, because when I say it's just a video game, just deal with it. Just who cares? As soon as the game's over, it doesn't affect your life in any way. When I say that, people sort of just assume that I don't care about people being mean, and they think I'm okay with it. And it's, the victim should learn to deal with it more than we should try to fix people being toxic, which I think is ridiculous, because let's look at the reality of the situation. Which is more likely a thing that we can collectively do? A, you just reinforce your own emotional fortitude against people trying to be little shits in a game, or B, you fix humanity. One of those is something you can actually do and put effort towards. The other one, you can't fix that. There will always be kids on the internet just being little shits. And that's usually what it is a lot of the time. I don't think people realize the average player base, the average age of the player base of this game is quite low. I asked comp players, this was like 6 or 7 months ago, the average age of comp players in DBD was 17. They are literally not even adults. And that's something that I sort of reinforce when I'm trying to not get upset about, people trying to be dicks in the game. Because think about it, if I was walking past a middle school and there were, 4 bully with friends, middle schoolers that were just, sitting in a room, and I walked by them and they just started shitting on me, just trying to make fun of me. Every single insecurity they can find, they just tried shitting on me. I would just go, aw, and just walk away, because they're fucking kids. Who cares? That's how I try to envision it. And the thing is, you don't even have to envision it, because with the average player base age, that's probably what it is a lot of the time. My point is that you can't fix children. Some people grow up slower than others, so you might have a 20-year-old, 22-year-old still doing that shit. And some people grow up faster. You might have a 14-year-old that's very respectful and stuff like that. But the point is, you can't fix humanity. That's not something that's ever going to happen. People will always rub in wins because it makes them feel better about themselves. It doesn't make them psychopaths that only want to make you upset. It's not like someone is teabagging the exegage just to make you mad, and that's the only thing they care about. They feed off your suffering. No, it makes them feel better about themselves because they felt like they earned a win against something that was probably against them, they felt like, or they got away from a tunneling killer and they're just rubbing it in at the end. That's usually what the actual answer is. So what's more likely? Again, you fixing the entirety of humanity, or you just learning to deal with it? And I have to try to reinforce that because that's the actual correct solution, is learning to deal with it is the thing you can actually do. And ironically, a lot of people that have this whole goal of, wanting to make the internet a nicer place and making everyone nice and all that stuff, because yes, that's the ideal perfection goal that will never happen. But when you actually deny people that are trying to be toxic to you, when you deny them their reactions and you're boring to react to, it reinforces a loop of kids learning that it doesn't give them any positive satisfaction, because the reason people keep doing it is because they get a funny response from the person that they're trying to bully, basically. If the person that you're trying to bully gives them no response, it will actually reinforce a whole generation of kids to get no positive response from it, and thus they will actually stop doing it. So ironically, just learning to deal with it actually is an attempt at fixing humanity in this respect, because you're denying people of their food. And if you do that, there's not much of a positive reinforcement to keep doing it, so it'll stop. So that's a much more tangible, realistic goal than trying to make everyone sunshine and rainbows and happiness and everyone's nice on the internet at all times. Kids will be little shits. It's just always going to happen. It's happened since the dawn of humanity. You will never fix that. So try to focus on the thing that you can fix. So now how you actually do that, that's certainly a much more complicated topic. For me, like I said, the way I deal with it is I'm an adult. I gotta buy a house soon. I'm worried about having kids. I gotta get married. I got bills. Like, the shit happening in a video game, it's not even a blip on my rate. Like, I don't have enough room in my heart emotionally to get upset at players in this game because of all the other shit I've got going on. And I feel like if you're an adult and you do have room for that, you must have such a cushy life to where you can actually devote time and energy to getting upset about people pressing control or hitting you on a hook. I just can't imagine you have that much problems in your life if you have the time of day to even get upset about that. But the thing is, most people are not really adults that play this game. Most of them are kids. And so they genuinely don't have anything better. And that's when it actually kind of makes a lot of sense. So it's really hard for me as a slightly older person to give advice to what is probably a younger audience, to just be an adult about it. I don't know how to go about doing that. I just know that's the only way to actually try to address the situation correctly. So I'm certainly open to suggestions for advice to give people, because this is the part I tend to falter at, because it is the correct way to solve it, but I don't know the methods to actually use. I don't know what to tell people to just stop getting offended by every little thing that happens in a game. I don't know what to do. So maybe you guys have some suggestions. I don't know. I would really love some better advice to tell people, because I always feel like I'm telling people off when really I'm just giving them the most heartfelt advice I could possibly give, which is just learn to deal with it. But I know it doesn't sound good when I put it like that. So what are some things you guys do to actually deal with people trying to be little shits in the game? That's, I guess, my main question, and I would love to have some responses so I can have something to tell people, have something that they can actually use, rather than me just saying, hey, just deal with it, forehead, But that's it. I just wanted to have that discussion, kind of carrying it over from my stream. I thought there's a lot of interesting stuff there. And that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.